Well, this week's challenge is to machine the boss, get that off and give me a flat mounting position for a new boss. Get these ways flat and true onto the main casting. And while I'm at it, I'll take the measurement. Once I've got those down and true, I'll take a measurement from there to the top of here, and if needed, just take a light skim off these two surfaces. Because obviously, if I remove material from there, plus the material I've removed from there and there, that gap's changed significantly. So the clamping plates have too much clearance, so they've got to be lowered. So it's just taking it off that surface. The problem, and this is probably the way I'm going to go, that surface there is radiused underneath, so it's not well, it's damn near impossible to get any kind of true setup off it. So I've got my biggest machine parallel sat against the face that the jaw would go, and then I'll have to come up with some kind of clamping across there, and then something to jack up this back end, and then get a DTI in the tool holder. And what I'm going to do is I've got to set some measurements up, but I'll probably run a DTI along that face, which is an original machined face, and there, because there's no wear on those, or there shouldn't be, because there's just a clamp plate sits on it. That's the plan. Obviously what I need to end up is these surfaces need to be at 90 degrees. That needs to be at 90 degrees to the face of the vise. It's not a huge issue if it's off, because I can remachine the face, but you know, it'd be nice to get it right first time. Right, so we're all set up. Don't see any reason why I can't get on with the cut now. Just want to make sure everything's holding together fine until I take it on first gear, stick it in second gear. Bring you back when I've got the cutting, feed and speed sorted. That's 60 thou depth of cut. About 8 thou step over. Take a bit more than that. That's 80 thou depth of cut. 10 thou step over. That's 100 thou depth of cut and 5 thou step over. It's starting to thump on the entry now. Don't think there's much thread left. I've just slowed it down on the hertz. Something occurred to me. So the forward stroke, it should be stationary. The backward stroke, it should be indexing. So watch the handle and listen for the noise. So it's just moving at the end of the stroke. Yeah? Which is alright. But I've only got it on a very low feed. Now if I just stop the thing. The eccentric on the bottom gear is fixed to a gear, or in mesh with a gear on the crankshaft, or ball gear if you like, against which we know there's a yoke mechanism and blah 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 blah. So depending on how that eccentric is meshed, i.e. which orientation that's meshed in relation to that gear, will determine at which point it's got the pull back or the push forward, i.e. depending on which way you got the ratchet. So even though I can have the thing set on the right side of the eccentric to give me the feed on the forward or reverse stroke, so it wants to be on the reverse when the stop gibbering. When the ram goes back, you basically want the carriage to move either left or right, so it's not moving during the cut. But the timing within that ram movement is determined by, or has to be determined by, the position that eccentric is in terms of the pair of gears it's meshed with. Something I hadn't considered, so I might at a later stage reinvestigate that and see whether I can optimize it so that the eccentric is in its if you like, middle of position. So rather than it all happening in that first quarter of the ram's movement, it happens more in the middle of the ram movement on the reverse. Does any of that make sense? We'll just clean the chips out so you can see not a lot of the thread left on that nut. So don't think it, if I'd have bodged it, I don't think it would have lasted many days. Yeah, good working order, buyer beware. I know it probably would have been faster with a milling machine, sticking an end mill through it. Where's the fun in that? It took us half an hour so far and we're just past halfway. That's third gear, 80 thou depth of cut, 5 thou step over. Unfortunately, the phone ran out of charge, so I've eased off since I was speeding it up and got the depth of cut to 100 thou. Motoring through it now. That's the last pass, which takes it 10 thou below the guide surfaces. Or was it? I'll just inch it back. Dead chuffed to put that inch facility on because it's bloody handy. A lot preferable to the clutch that is on the M10. To coin the phrase of a young lady down under, it's not too shabby. So what have we learnt from today's little exercise? The main thing, that adjusting screw on the tool head, when the tool head gets down, it's going to foul there. So what I've ended up doing is having to keep extending the tool down. So I need to whip that out, get the nut halved, and reduce the length of that grub screw or set screw. Is it set screw in America? I can't remember what the Americans call them. Grub screw over here. What else? The Gibbs adjuster on the arse end of the saddle, which I'd set basically on the basis of what felt comfortable to wind, or easy I should say. What I found was on the heavier cuts, the box, you could visibly see it if you look closely doing that, as the cut was pushing down this side. So about halfway through I stopped everything, wound the box this way, moved the jacking screws in a touch. There's only one at each end and one in the middle, so they all got adjusted. That seems to have got rid of that issue. So it wasn't dipping, it was twisting. Not a huge issue on the surface that we're doing, but if I was doing a vertical plane, squaring up a side for example, that'd be a bit of a mess. So that's that. Yeah, I think that's about it. Otherwise, fairly happy. So the next job is to bed the moving jaw onto the fixed base. So I've glued up that. It's a bit heavy, but it's early days yet. I've done half a dozen roughing passes. What I'm trying to get is blue at each of the four corners. Then I know it's sitting square. Then I take down each of the four corners progressively so the blue extends inwards. And what I'm looking for is sort of 2/3 of it, each strip covered but evenly. So this corner is still not sitting down. There's obviously something going wrong here. Maybe a bit of muck in the blue. You can see the smears here. When it's cold, that engineer's blue goes a bit gloopy. So we'll progress. That seems to have taken an absolute age. I must be out of practice. But I've got ink in all four corners now. So now I just start dropping down the ink spots and bring in the centre section. I've took the rock out of it. There was a noticeable tilt like that. So that's a good start. It's looking a bit healthier. So I'm just going to break up that area, pick out the darker spots on it all, and then I might go to town and actually flake it as well. I think that's for a vice, I think that's more than acceptable. Not too shoddy. I don't think that's too bad. I've given it a double line of flaking each direction. It's a bit crappy because it's a long while since I've flaked. I think they call that a random distribution. Anyway, it's bedded on now, so the last job on this fixed off will be measuring that height down against that web thickness, and then I'll probably hand file those down. That'll give me the clamping plate pinch, and then I've got to work out my hole centres for drilling to then mount a block, which will be the next job. So there we go. Cleaning up the clamping faces of the moving jaw. So these are the bits that go underneath the bits that clamp on here, because there's I don't know whether you can see that there's 10 or 15 thou wear. Good enough for me. Just going to take another cut because this back corner here is not cleaned up. So I took 8 thou off and it's not cleaned up. I'll just take another 5. Actually no, I took 10 thou to start off with. Quite a soft plate, so I've got almost a shear cutting action. Into a flat surface. It's running nice and smooth. That's in 3rd gear at 50 hertz. Bring you back on the cut. You can see the shavings are quite tightly curled, as if it was a shear tool. Could have put bigger radius on it, but for all it's doing, I think it'd be fine. Can't really tell with this. I'm happy with that. So I've just planed off the clamping faces of the two keeper plates. I've checked all the dimensions, slid it on, been sliding backwards and forwards nice. There's no discernible lift of the jaw front to back. There's sideways movement, but there's no means of adjusting that, not without me fitting a gib, and to be honest I don't think it warrants it, but that's good. So that should stop the jaw yawning backwards and forwards. I think in total we took out about 15 thou. Show the next job. This is where I pull it off and drop it on my toe. The next job is to drill the holes through here that will accept the block, and then cut the block, bore it out to accept the nut, with the flange on that face, yeah, and I think that's it. Oh no, we've got to do the base yet. Don't bring you back later. So before I start chewing off the steel on that to block for squaring up, I thought I'd set the timing on the index feed. If you remember on an earlier episode, if it made the editor's cut, whilst the feed was in the right orientation, it was very borderline close to the position at which the ram starts to reverse and come back. So I think some of the feed was happening before the end of the stroke, and that's all set by these two gears here. So that gear's fixed to the main ball gear, which is driving the ram, and then that one's, there's no gear reduction or anything, it's a straight transfer. But depending on where you mesh this gear in relation to that orientation of the crank, if you like, determines at which point it starts to feed. So if you watch it now, should get it from there. So what you're looking for is the ratchet to operate in the forward stroke, and therefore the movement of that the movement of the carriage happens on the reverse stroke. So that's that bit done. Just got to fit the cover plate back on and then we're off and moving again. That's 50 thou depth of cut, 10 thou step over. So we're not hurtling through because I don't want to be playing pickup chips all around the shop. So it's just shoved the work out the vice. Oh hum. That's the first side squared off or flattened off. It's only a roughing tool because I'm not looking for a finish on it. I just want a flat side and then I can start squaring off the other three. face the ends off, taking it to length. It's in a concentric 4-jaw, which doesn't get us looking very often. Next job is basically to got to bore out a hole through this direction, so the whole thing's got to come out, stick the 4-jaw independent up, and then work out where my hole's going to go. In order to do that, let's just take this off a sec. Bring you back in a mo. So that's where it sits. So I've marked that face and that face because they're the most true. That sits over the pad. Now what I've got to do is have this bolted down so that I can then mark the centre line of that, and I'm going to make up basically a piece of steel turned to fit the hole in here snug, with a point on the end. Hold the block in position underneath its base, give it a tap, and that'll give me my centre line. But in order to get it in the hole, I've got to put the arch around it. So I've got to come up with a cunning plan as to how I'm going to do that. It's probably going to involve a pair of scissors and some cardboard, and cut the profile round and then transfer it onto the block, this end and the other end of it, because it's not square. I'll probably cut the profile to match the deep end and then hand finish it. Bring it back. It's a bit of a pikey method of doing it, but so bear in mind this is the base from which everything's dimensionally taken. All I've done is cut a profile out until it went down and slotted so it'd hang there, and then transferred that mark round it and then dot punched. Now's the time I wish I had a linisher, because I think that's probably about, what, 10 minutes of a job on a linisher. I haven't got a linisher, I've got a shaper, so this should be entertaining. I'll have a think about how I'm going to do that, but I think it's going to be a case of putting it in that orientation, making sure the vise is clear, and then left a bit, down a bit, right, left a bit, down a bit. See how we go. Bring you back when we're cutting. I haven't videoed it because I'm feeding by hand and indexing across, and it's well, too many things to worry about. Anyway, I've roughed it out, and I'll go over it now with a file and take the ridges out. I've took the line out all the way around. Well, I haven't finished where they'll go, but all I've been doing is just fitting it to make sure it fits on and slides down. I'm bottoming out there, which gives me 8 1/4 inches gap, and I'm a good 2 inches short of the end. When I look at it, you can see the witness where it's bumped there. So before I go filing any more of this away, which is it's just to match the incline up here, I've took the bumps off, but it's actually tapered from that height to the lower down to that height as the base comes up. I gibber on. Anyway, what I'm going to do is turn up a spigot with a spike on the end, put this in position, mark the centre, and then scribe round to give me the diameter and give me a ring that I'm actually going to be boring out to, and then I can decide how much of it I'm going to file away. I mean, 8 1/4 is a decent bleeding size at the end of the day, so that's what we're at. Well, we're setting up to bore the hole through. I've only ever seen this done. I've never tried it myself, using a centre to pick up a dot punch, and it rides on the centre there, and as it oscillates around you have to take the reading. Obviously you want the reading to be 0. we're about half a mil out now, 20 thou out. So a bit of messing about tomorrow, and we should be set up. What is key is that face is at 90 degrees to this face, but there's an error of a few thou between these two faces being parallel. Something I hadn't worked out, so I've got to make sure as I'm moving it around I keep this face 90 degrees to the face of the chuck. But yeah, got a bit of alignment to do yet. It's not my favourite thing. Bring you back tomorrow. Well, that was surprising. It only took a couple of minutes. I mean, so one division is half a thou, near as damn it, and that's moving a quarter of a division. Oh, thoroughly impressed with myself. Just got to check that that's still 90 degrees. To get some light behind it, but certainly looks all right. So I'll give them all a nip up, just to repeat it, and then start drilling it out, and then bore it out to, I think it's 32 mil we're going to go to. It's a chilly one this morning. I took the dogs out for a walk, and it was a hard frost. It was one of them hard walks where you crunch through the frost into the soft mud underneath. I tell it's cold because my hand's sticking to the tailstock. I'm getting very cold as a result. Well, with the wonders that are the iPhone, battery ran out halfway through that. We're at 30 mil, we've got another 2 mil to come out on diameter. Feeding by hand, so I haven't got to keep winding it out on the clutch. I'm also expecting that we'll start to break through the holes on this and the next cut. Just reduce the depth of cut, so I can feel it. out to a couple of thou because I've got to make the bushing fit it. So I think if I take 0.3 of a mil out, we'll be cooking on gas. So the last operation was I just faced off that front face so that when I make the flange, it's got a flat face to sit on. And I cut a slightly bigger chamfer, 45 degrees, so that I can put a flange, well, the corner on the flange to the cylinder is not a straight 90 degree. So next job, I need to determine how big I'm going to make the flange, and then I'll probably cut this down a bit. I'm just setting up to turn down the brass, the bronze nut. I've got a bit of run out on the end, which I think is each division's half a thou, near as damn it. Is that 2? I bumped it around a bit, so this one's shifted now. So do a bit more and get it so it's running true, and then I've got to take 4 mil off diameter, sorry, off radius I think it is. Bring it back when we're set up. I hate running up to the chuck. Just make sure it's took off what we think it should have took off. It's a bit less. Well, I need to measure my hole and then work out how much interference I'm putting in. 32.16 is the magic number. Can't really read that. That is 32.2. And that is 32.18. $32.175. Yeah, I'm just going to do a spring pass on that. So it's that. I want 32.16 and I've got, I think it's 32.18 there. Yeah. So I'm a thou up on same there. So I'm half a thou up there and a thou up there. That's based on a dimension which was my target was a thou and a half oversized for the bore, and I'm 2.5 thou, which, given it's a press fit, it's good enough for me, I think. Clean that shoulder out and get myself a nice radius in there, and then we'll look at eating it up and walloping it in with a big hammer. I mean, pressing it in gently. Let's bring you back. Excuse the wobbly camera. So that's just forward on a bit of a lead for it. That's where we're going to end up. Oh, that's a good squeak. Shoo! I think it can come out. So we chilled down the bronze nut. That went in the freezer down to -18, and the steel housing we heated up with a hot air gun. Got that up to about 180 degrees. That left us with around about half a thou of interference fit, so it pressed him with the between the vice jaws. Well, I couldn't wait, so I thought I'd assemble it and just make sure everything fits and lines up, and it does, which is encouraging. So we've got the threaded collar there. That needs modifying, or needs finishing so that it can be locked in place. The original one had just got 2 grub screws either side of the part line between the collar and the shaft. I'm not sure whether I'll repeat that or do something a bit better. You can see the bronze nut there. I've got to change those out for a pair of standard cap heads and countersink them in. I might use button heads, but they need a flat base to go onto, and then I need to do the second set of holes, which is there somewhere, and cut the flats on the shaft. But it works. Wants bedding in a bit and everything lubing up, but I'm quite happy with that. Progress is good. Well, we've had a bit of a fruitful morning, fruitful with various cock-ups. Decided to trim that end flush and then just stick in a couple of set screws, half and half. There's only enough meat to put an M5 in, which I did. That one went in fine. I then drilled that one, and the hole broke through to the inside. So I started another one slightly further adrift, and that one still broke through, but only just. So I'm not entirely sure how I've managed that, unless the OD of that brass nut was a fraction out. Anyway, so I decided to put that in as a brass stud, wound it in, marked the length, went to wind it out, and it sheared. Bugger. So we're about ready to strip it all down and start scraping the bottom. I've spent another hour or two, a couple of hours, just filing that top edge, which is actually the bottom edge, so that it can travel back here. And I've got it to the stage where it bottoms out, and I've got, I think I'm within a few thou, 9.5 inch opening. I think originally it went to 10, but that would require me shifting a load of this, which I don't want to do. And bearing in mind that collar's only 3 mil wider, there's not really a lot of meat left around it, so I'm going to call it done. If I want to grip anything wider, I'll have to have a cunning plan. So stripping it down and start measuring up for alignment on the base.